Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Hey folks, and welcome back to the podcast. Today is one of our roundup episodes from Women in the Fire Service UK, where in June of 2024, I attended once again for probably the third or fourth year running. I went to their National Training and Development event. This was on the 7th to the 9th of June 2024, hosted by the Fire Service College. This year's event was another absolute whirlwind of experiences, development, connection, networking, and to be honest, just a super inspiring experience for me personally. And it was just packed. There was well over 200 delegates. I think the number was like 210 or something like that. And I just seem to be taking more and more away from these events in my experiences, my network, how I personally feel included and inspired and driven to keep doing the podcast, as well as leaning into my professional career, finding new and diverse ways of thinking as that network and awareness grows both around the world. And also we had some Swedish delegates there, so around the globe. So today is another insight into the WFS National Training Development event. And let's hear about who I'm talking to. So in today's episode, I'm speaking with Louise Diffey from Hampshire and Isle of Wight FRS. And she facilitated a wonderful session and workshop around engaging through change. So this was a really, really powerful one, really insightful, so well facilitated. And again, in the room, we had people from Grey and Green Book staff and from many different levels of the organisation, all the way up to a young lady from the senior leadership team in one service. And it was all about understanding how people react to change and plan for how to support others through this. Recognizing the nature of your change and improve what's within your influence. You know, we speak about that sphere of control and sphere of influence. That's a really important distinction to make when you're thinking about change. We spoke a lot about the change curve. There's a great SCARF acronym in here, which you may find useful. You know how we love acronyms. And then there's some deployable stuff about applying the tools and techniques to engage others when the way ahead is unclear. Now, how much can people relate to that, perhaps in your service or brigade in the UK? So it was an interactive workshop considering the change curve, what we feel, how we behave, and how we can support each other through changing, even when the change feels big and uncertain. So I really, really loved this chat with Louise. You know what? She was such a great facilitator because change is such an emotive and provocative term, and especially when it's being imposed or forced upon you, or you feel like it is outside your sphere of control. And she just was so wonderful when the conversations were bursting out and getting kinetic and heading down little rabbit holes. And she was a masterclass, to be honest, in how to facilitate and guide these creative conversations. And she had some great, we did obviously some team building stuff and some icebreaker stuff. And just the conversation was so rich and deep. And there was some people in the room who were very open and honest. And it just made for such a great session. I've done a lot of these things in various organizations and even in past careers, talking about engaging through change. I'm familiar with the change curve, and obviously through my own life, through addictions and injuries and changes in career and many setbacks, and coming upon 2 decades in the fire service, I'm used to change. Change is the only constant, and they always do say that the hilarious thing about firefighters is some of them, not all of them, hate the way things are and they hate change. But in any given moment, we have 2 options: to step forward into growth or step back into safety. And true success can be defined as your ability to adopt to changing circumstances. So it's really, really crucial that we all get a strong handle on this and lean into it, because change is just a law of life. And those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. That was John F. Kennedy. So start thinking about change. Immerse yourself in the change curve. We'll try and put some links underneath here to make some of these resources available. But if you just type the change curve and you type the SCARF acronym for change into Google, you'll find it as well. You're a curious sausage. I'm sure you'll be able to navigate the internet. And if you can't, then you're obviously not embracing change, because all of the stuff's on the internet these days. Anyway, so sorry, not being harsh. But this was a great chat with Louise. So I hope you enjoy it. And it's my pleasure to introduce Louise Diffey to the podcast. I'll see you on the other side.
Louise Diffey, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service.
So, Louise, I was participating in a session today with yourself around change and around managing change and around how we handle it. One of my favourite ones is always when you say, firefighters hate the way things are and they hate change. We seem to be entrenched in a perpetual cycle of change at the minute. We're changing the needs of the public, the needs of the services, the diverse workforce that we're now working in, changes in finance and budgets. Why is this such a excitable thing for you? Obviously, you're passionate about it because you come into WFS to deliver a workshop on it. Why do you think this is an important thing for us to be talking about?
I think it's important, not just in terms of our jobs, our roles, our careers, of course, political differences and things, but it is important at home for your day-to-day. It is for the whole you, because change is inevitable, it's frequent, and you just need to be able to bolster yourself and those around you to engage with it, to understand it and feel how you feel about it and understand where that comes from.
We are, like you say, you're always going through change, aren't you? Like you say, it is inevitable. It's the cycle that you can't unplug from it because the only constant is change. You had some really useful models that I'm sure some people may be familiar with, but we demonstrated, we kept echoing back to this curve, this sort of change curve. For people that aren't remotely familiar with that, I'm not going to ask you to say it off the back of your head, but give us an understanding for what that looks like usually, because we are getting a lot of change fatigue. Some people changing for change's sake, but we do genuinely need to make some changes because so much is changing around us. And also the sort of recognition of why we're all here for this weekend is a lot of us are also either advocates of change or we want to see a certain type of change in our organisations. Going back and articulating that and getting people on board and taking us through that curve. What was that curve that we were speaking a lot about today and the sort of steps in it? This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
So we were looking at the change curve, which starts from a change happening, the situation, etc., and you move into denial. Originally, which can cause you to blame yourself, can cause you to blame others. And then you slide down into a dip of uncertainty and possibly confusion. This could be where there's rumours, miscommunications, and we're trying to fill in the gaps to comfort ourselves because we haven't got all the information or we don't quite understand it. And then we move in upwards on our way out of the curve, more into acceptance, asking more questions, finding out more before generally becoming more comfortable, embracing that change and moving on. It could be that you whiz through that change. The change for you could be you go to the supermarket and your normal breakfast cereal isn't there. So you'll be like, okay, not here. Oh dear, what shall I get? Okay, I'll try this one. It's not going to be the end of the world. So you whiz through that curve, woo, like that.
But you still do, you go, Lidl's useless, everyone's rubbish. I should have come yesterday, and then you're like, what do I like? What's alignment with my dietary? Is it going to annoy my IBS? But then, lo and behold, you, through the pressure of time and, I've got to eat something tomorrow, so I'm going to make a decision and commit to it.
Very much.
So a lot of us get stuck in that bottom because you've articulated there the typical scenario where it happens and it works and eventually everyone gets acceptance and we all get on board. A little bit like using that analogy of death and the cycles of grievance and eventually hopefully achieving closure. It doesn't always move in that linear way.
No.
And especially with the rate of change, sometimes we're cycled back into that denial. And you said around blaming. Well, you actually said blaming yourself, blaming others, but often it usually works like in the pictograph as well. It works in the reverse, doesn't it? We all like pointing fingers, we rarely point thumbs. And I think that's kind of a self-awareness piece.
Yeah.
Doesn't always necessarily come with age as well. People say you get wiser as you get older. I don't know that's necessarily. And also how long people have or haven't been in a service, that doesn't inherently even, sometimes they can make it harder for change. We had different levels of rank and leadership in the room today, all the way up to a young lady that was in a senior leadership role. Yeah. She gave some great insights around communication, because she said around getting stuck in that valley. Yeah. And often that's where the valley is the churn of the rumour mill, because we don't know what's going on. You've gone behind the closed doors and you said you're listening to me, but then you come out with a plan. We said red, blue, white, and you went in and came out with turquoise, and we went, what? Weren't you even listening to me? Like, what do you think are some of the common mistakes when so many people moving into leadership positions now, or management positions, depending on how they perceive their role? What are some of the common challenges or mistakes that you think a lot of new leaders make when you're running these workshops and people saying, Louis, no, they never listen to me, or they don't realise, we had some people in the room today, they don't realise I am the subject matter expert, but the thing is bigger than you as well. And also the fire service was here long before us, and it'll be here long after. We're just trying to make it better while we're here.
It's definitely surrounding, especially when it comes to somebody implementing a change or leading through a change. It's very much the stakeholders. Who is involved, what capacity involved, and in what way do they need to be kept informed? Or, you know, how much of an impact will that stakeholder have or need? And it can be that we hold back from certain groups because we're worried of information coming out too early, or fueling the rumour mill. But by holding that back, the rumours are just going to come anyway.
In the absence of the truth, something's going to fill that void, isn't it?
Yeah. It can be that how it's communicated isn't communicating, isn't talking to people in the way that their language that they need it.
I have this with academics. You know, we have some great academics on the podcast, and I said to a wonderful lady the other day, Nicola was her name, and she was talking about decision making and difficulties. And she'd written it for the fire service and elicited a lot of her responses from the fire service. But she acknowledged herself, and the reason she wanted to come on is because academics write papers for academics. Yeah. And then academics read them because they have to sign them off to get them published. But it's not always massively digestible. And just to put that template onto how we communicate sometimes, when you're reaching those upper echelons perhaps of the leadership role, and you think, I'm absorbed by status. We spoke about a great scarf model as well. Like, I should speak in a certain way. Yep. I have to be seen to always and only be upholding their values. And it can become very inauthentic. Yeah. People can't relate to it. It's in a language I don't understand. How does that affect me then? You've said lots of Gucci buzzword bingo stuff, and you've mentioned some numbers. I'm a firefighter. Yeah. What does that mean to me? And the golden thread analogy we've spoken about, which is still in a lot of the old literature and the IFE stuff and things like this. What am I supposed to do with that? I'm very impressed. Wow, it was 27 pages. Christ, it was even glossy. Did you get someone to do the thing and make it up for you? What does that mean to me? Do you know what I mean? Help doing it in a language that people can understand. This episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the center of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show.
You can relate it to, in the fire service, we have endless jargon, we've got endless acronyms. Yeah. You try and tell that to somebody outside your service, or, like we've even found this weekend, where we're meeting people from other services, that can mean something totally different to them. And it's exactly the same. If you don't communicate the language in a language they're going to understand, or explain in the benefits that impact them. If it's 6 degrees of separation and we're too far away, it means nothing.
I always think of it like students. Like I work in a training department sometimes, and you've got to meet them where they are, because there's great. Is it Dr. Brian Cox? Is always one of my favourites. I forget who it was that said it, but they were like, if you know a subject well enough, or you know something well enough, you should be able to explain it to a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And there's a really funny quote where, there's a boardroom full of big, powerful male CEOs, and the person that's trying to explain the problem to them is like, this is so simple, I could explain it to a 7-year-old. And one of them's like, quick, someone fetch me a 7-year-old. But you've got to meet someone where they are, haven't you? You've got to say it in a language that people are going to understand, and again, how it's going to affect them. We spoke about this SCARF model this afternoon. Status being the first one on that list. How does that act either as a barrier to, and also for the person adopting change? As an example, like if you're a station manager and there's been a change applied to you, feeling, well, I'm important enough that I should have been consulted on this. Yeah. And those elements of not recognising everyone in the room and considering and including, or at least letting them feel heard, was something we spoke about a lot today. Yeah.
Very much. It is your status and your identity. You can feel very vulnerable. With the SCARF model, it's similar to identifying these things as to whether it's a threat to it, so you're anti it, you want to run away from it, or if it's a reward and you're like, yeah, this is good. So if this change comes in and it's someone that's concerned about that status, whether that's their status amongst their peers, how they're thought of, or you could think of their rank or role or promotion. However you look at it, if it's something that they feel might threaten that, it will be a long journey on that curve. Whereas if it's something that feels more of a reward, or they think it's going to be beneficial to them, they're going to be much more running around.
Similar to one of the people in the room gave an example of a project they were working on to looking for savings within their service. And if you can articulate that as a win, e.g., this person was referring to a 7-figure sum that they were trying to look for savings on. Yeah. Breaking that down into something that's digestible and saying, well, rather than telling me how you can save £2 million, because what's that to firefighters? That means nothing. Yeah. You just told me close 3 stations. Yeah. That's what you just said to me. But if you could shrink that down to every watch in the service saving £80 a week, and then including people in that problem-solving mindset, because that takes us onto that certainty element. And I found during our conversations today, this can be more emotive for Green Book staff in that, how certain is my job? Yeah. Because it's very emotive and political to go and get rid of a fire engine or a station, not that we want to see either, but I feel like, and maybe you'll be able to speak better than me about it, but I feel sometimes Green Book staff are looked at a little bit like second-class citizens. I don't know as it's completely... I don't think it's the same. I don't think we treat everybody the same in that respect. I don't know. No,
and it's... In my experience, I certainly don't feel like a second-class citizen, and I do feel very valued. However... You still have that level of vulnerability. Yes. And it can be that area of uncertainty.
A young lady said today around she was permanent and then she went into 4 years on a temporary contract. Yeah. And you just think, wow. And her concern and even the changes that she has going on now, 60% of her cognitive ability is focusing on, am I safe? So her ability to focus on her work and try and find solutions to things will be seriously inhibited because she doesn't have psychological safety. Yeah. She doesn't have that reassurance. All she hears is change, and all she sees is a number that needs to be decreased. And because of the lack of communication and the absence of clarity, her concerns and fears move to, am I safe? Yeah. And that's scary for people. Yeah. That's really scary. And I don't think that's always a fear that firefighters perhaps would share, because I feel like predominantly we're significantly safer. Yeah. In that respect, from an employment perspective.
Yeah, essentially.
I want to be precious of your time, but there's a few things there around autonomy, fairness and relatedness. Like if you could just speak to those, just so we can wrap this up. And we also will if appropriate, probably provide a contact of some form if people want to get a bit more clarity on these. But just complete that circle for us if you could, because autonomy is an important one.
Yes.
The team here at the podcast are extremely excited to announce our brand new partnership with Patrol Store UK. Patrol Store has been serving the UK's police, fire and emergency communities and first responder sector since 2008, providing leading brands such as Hikes, Magnum, 511, Nebo, Opzulu, Highlander, AKU and many, many more of our favourites. They are now also supplying bespoke uniform, PPE and station workwear to fire services around the UK. So for all our listeners that are part of your USAR, your HEART team, your ISAR team, your armed response teams, your fire investigation, your NALO, your hazmat and all of the training departments that have got your own budgets, be sure to get the absolute best for your team at a realistic price by contacting Aaron and the team at Patrol Store and referencing the Firefighters podcast. Patrol Store will also be taking part in our listener competition giveaways, as well as providing unique discounts to podcast listeners. So for people that are always asking about Hikes boots as an example, that is one unique discount code that is coming to you very soon through Patrol Store. We've also got some incredible bags. I mean, the Opzulu bags are a game changer. So you know the really Gucci and expensive tactical black bags that everyone's using in CrossFit workouts and taking to the gym and taking to stations? Well, they've basically got that, but it's made better and costs less, because they're not slapping some Gucci expensive brand name on it and it's giving you what you want on a first responder salary. Be sure to keep your eyes in the notes of the episodes for links to unique offers and discount codes. And if you're looking to buy well and buy once, be sure to get in the notes and head over to Patrol Store UK. Now back to the show.
Again, that autonomy is not to be confused with responsibility.
Okay.
Autonomy is having choices. It doesn't necessarily mean you are responsible and the buck ends with you, but it's being able to know your boundaries and expectations, etc., and how much influence and impact you have on that potentially. And
it can help you recognise what is in your sphere of control as well, because it can very quickly feel like you're in control of nothing, where actually you still do have choices. Definitely. They may not be as many choices as you'd like, and the edge of those choices might stop shorter than you'd like them to, but you do still have choice and a level of autonomy, don't you?
Definitely. And with the SCARF model, again, if the change is coming in and that's a threat to your autonomy, and that's not something you're willing to give up, then again, it's going to be harder to embrace that change. However, if it's something you want to move towards and it improves what your view of autonomy is or what you need in terms of autonomy, because in life you don't always have to be a leader. There's also followership, which and some of us will take that gratefully so it depends on that impact for you as to how you'll feel about the change as well.
I know you've come and you've led on a workshop, which is fantastic, through your experiences and your sort of expertise, but you also come to these things because you get exciting little development areas for yourself. You got to drive a fire engine this afternoon. Talk to us about that.
I drove a Nino.
You drove a Nino. Did you have the little gremlins, all the little minions out there out the window with the Nino and the helmets on the top?
It was amazing.
Yeah, is it the first time you've done it?
It's the first time,
yeah. Why did you want to do it?
Because I'm an atrocious driver.
No.
I know, who'd have thought?
That's stereotype for me now.
No, I really am.
Okay.
Completely. I am an atrocious driver. I don't have a huge amount of confidence in my driving. That doesn't make me go any slower or around corners in the right gear or anything. But I like to challenge myself. I like to try new things. They're like very much in a growth mindset of... well, I didn't hit my car on the way up here, so maybe I won't hit the big red shiny thing. And it's just nice to experience, being from Greenbook, it is nice to experience what my Greybook colleagues go through. It gives me a greater appreciation for what they do. And even outside the service, bus drivers have to put up with this every day. And, you think of pizza delivery people and Ubers 100%. And things like flying past. It all suddenly your world changes because you have a different view. My perspective has completely changed. And it was so much fun. I made some new friends doing it. laughed so hard my face hurt with each other, not at each other. I didn't kill any cones.
There you go. Cones survived.
Yeah, I feel that, I've saved the
Why do you
budget.
keep coming to things like this? Because you say there about this growth mindset, which some people were able to relate to. Maybe they've read some of the Angela Duckworth stuff on it and things like that. But that neuroplasticity, which is kind of what we're talking about there, does tend to fade.
Yeah.
You are experienced in your career. You're not new to this sector. So some people might look at WFS and go, oh, yeah, that's great for recruits. I think we should send some recruits on that. Help me with the sales pitch of why even you come to deliver a workshop for your experiences, but there's many, many, many very experienced men and women here this weekend who aren't delivering workshops, but they probably could.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But they're obviously here for their own personal development as well. Why do you think this sort of thing is important, that we kind of keep it going? And what do you take away from it? Why do you keep coming?
So this is my third year.
Okay.
My first year I came as a delegate, and I had been in the service a couple of months. And it really... I think I did be a firefighter, I did promotion, can't remember. We are going back 3 years. And the learning I took for myself was amazing, but also, even as a delegate, the things I got to share and other people and other services learned from me that day, and I'd been in months, and I was greener than green, it was amazing. So then I wanted to come and got the opportunity to come to deliver 2 courses last year over the 3 days. And again, it was even richer because there were people, and you can see their faces light up as they've got something to take away with them.
I always say come and find the nuggets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These might be a 3-hour session and there'll be a 10-minute thing and you'll go, damn, that's good. And I've made pages of notes for myself as well, because I'm like, there's always something. There's always a nugget here or there. Even if you went and did the same course again. It's the old, we spoke about it today, no person ever entered the same river twice, because the person's changed. And so is the river. Like, you come back here, you've changed over that year. You've had more life experiences. And what you take away from it, it's like when you read a book again.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see that first time.
Yeah.
You read it a second time and go, oh my God, I took something totally different away from it.
Definitely. And I also get the benefit of not only being able to share something, but also to take things away from my delegates every time. It makes me feel really proud to represent my service. It makes me feel really proud to be female. It makes it's so nice to learn from everybody and see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
It's very much a bigger picture feeling.
Because we can get stuck in our own silos and catastrophize in our own services, can't we? And then you kind of zoom out and you come here and everyone's got different challenges, different size organizations. And I often say, look, if we all put our problems on the table, you'd probably pick your own back up again. And it gives you a great perspective. And you also think of different ways, that sort of neurodiversity element of people in different situations, different life experiences, different challenges in their services, and the ways they're seeking to solve them.
Yeah.
It's great because we all do very similar things in the UK Fire Service, but we seem to be doing it all very differently, which is fascinating. And that's never going to stop. But hopefully we can take the good from each other.
Yeah.
And that whole kind of rising tide raises all the ships analogy.
Who knew there was 25 ways to do one thing?
Who knew it?
Who knew?
Right, I want to be respectful of your time. I know we've got some awards this evening, some drinks and some celebrations. Won't be going too late because I think you've got another workshop tomorrow. Haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Okay, make sure we recover.
Soda water for me.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, lovely to see you.
The Firefighters Podcast was created to recognise, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you're around the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.